Hey everybody, welcome to the Darkstream. This is Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com. Thanks for swinging by. I got an email tonight, an email from a science fiction writer. And what was interesting about it was that he was actually reminding me that he had written to me a few months ago. And what he'd written to me a few months ago, he was talking about being concerned about what the reaction was going to be in his local community of other writers and that sort of thing, when they found out that he was of the political right. He's not alt-right, he's not hardcore or anything like that. He's just a pretty normal, reasonable person. And but he said he felt like he was having to hide and always having to watch what he said and be very careful, because the people that he was around, especially leading up to the election, were just your usual SJW lunatics. Now, obviously, in the science fiction community, there's more of them, and they tend to be more extreme, and they tend to feed off each other than in your average workplace or something. Your average workplace, at least, you've normally got people who are reasonable, functioning individuals. But what I told him at the time, he reminded me, was that you got to be who you are. You've got to be free to speak what you think. You've got to be free to say and talk about what you believe. And a lot of people are afraid to do that, and understandably. He came back and was telling me that it was the consequences were even worse than he had imagined, because he actually got, I didn't mention who this is. This is just a writer, somebody who wrote to me, and commented that he had actually been banned from a event that he had been heavily involved with for years, something that he'd been working with, contributing his time to, and all that sort of thing. We don't really need your comments about about your viewing experience. It doesn't help anyone else, just so you're aware. So anyhow, the important thing to realize is that what this guy was thinking was the same as everybody else, the same thing that we all thought at one point in time. A lot of people will look at me and they'll say, why are you so harsh? Why are you so completely unaccepting of these left-wingers? They're just saying what they think. They just believe differently than you. They just have some different thoughts and all that sort of thing. But the reality is that they simply haven't experienced for themselves yet what I experienced. I used to believe that you could be reasonable with the left. I used to believe that it's okay to just agree to disagree and that sort of thing. Sure, we might have a difference of opinion, but that's okay. Except that's not okay with them. It's not acceptable to them. I'm not talking about everybody on the left. There are reasonable people on the left. There are people that you can talk to and that you can disagree with. But what you need to understand is that many people on the left, and you know who they are, you know who the SJWs are in your, you know who they are in your family, you know who they are in your work. You know who they are, in your various organizations and stuff. They're all the people that you tiptoe around. They're all the people that you are afraid to speak frankly around, because they're going to jump down your throat. Okay? Now, what I'm telling you is that those people are not your friends. Those people may be your family, but they don't treat you like family, because that's not the way that you're supposed to treat a family member. You're not supposed to leap down your friend's throat just because he disagrees with you. You're not supposed to tell somebody that they're wicked and evil and deserve to die because they happen to vote for a different presidential candidate than you support. And so, what I want to, what I wanted this guy to understand the first time we talked, and what you need to understand now, is that you have to accept the world the way it is. You have to accept reality the way it is, and you need to stop priding yourself on the fact that, oh, I'm tolerant. I'm very proud of the fact that I have these friends that are SJWs. I'm different. They're different. We have a unique and special relationship, and of course they would never turn on me. Well, guess what? They will. It's just a matter of time, and you know it because that's why you're hiding what you think from them. That's why you're watching your tongue around them. That's why you don't ever bring up politics around them. The only time you ever do it is, oh, well, he's not that bad, when somebody is going off on a big rant against Trump. The correct thing to do when somebody, starts pulling that kind of crap, and you know what they do. They make a statement, a broad statement, and they make a statement and then look at you because you're supposed to agree with it. You're supposed to either submit and assent with your silence, or issue some feeble sort of, well, I don't agree with everything that he does, but I don't think he's quite that bad. That's not a defense, okay? Here's something that you should eradicate from your vocabulary. I don't agree with everything so-and-so says, but, okay? I get that, people say that about me a lot. You always see these folks saying, well, I don't agree with everything Vox says, but what? Well, so what? That is a totally, if you think about it, that is a totally unnecessary caveat. That is a totally unnecessary thing to say, because who do you agree about everything with? Is there anyone on the planet with whom you agree about everything? Right? Nobody. So why are you saying, well, I don't agree with everything that Donald Trump says. I don't agree with everything that Milo says. I don't agree with everything that Vox says. I don't agree with everything that Cernovich says. Why do you need to do that? Because you are cowering. Because you are afraid. Because you are basically, what you are doing essentially is you're actually sabotaging yourself, because what you're doing is you're saying, please don't hit me, but I don't agree with you. Please don't hit me, but I think this person is okay. Yeah, the right thing to say, like somebody says, I fucking love the God Emperor. That is, if you want to shut them down, if you want to avoid an argument, the very best thing that you can do is simply openly and directly not only reject what they're saying, but come back harder. That's why I love using the I love the Trump slide shirts. I love the God Emperor themes. When people are complaining about Mattis or whoever, I like to refer to him as the God Emperor's War Master. They have no ability to. They don't even know what to do. Somebody wrote into me on the blog at Vox Populi, and they said that their family had started in on Trump, and then he said he said, I love the God Emperor. What about the God Emperor? And they just stopped, and then they later they tried to kind of edge in again, and he just jumped in with another God Emperor reference, and they just retreated. They gave it up, because you got to remember, these people are weak. They are intellectually weak, not stupid necessarily, but they're weak. They cannot defend their own positions. They cannot argue. And, above all, what? They always lie. Always, always, always lie. Okay? So they're lying to you when they try to act like they don't mind the tolerance, and they're tolerant, and this and that and stuff. They're not honest. Okay? You're right. They are moved by emotion, not by arguments. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to test you. They're constantly testing the waters with you. They're constantly trying to figure out exactly where you are, and then they're trying to push you. And so, when you do that deflective stuff, it doesn't work. Okay? They're testing you, and when you fail that test, when you try to evade and you try to deflect, they know perfectly well. They know perfectly well that you don't have the guts to defend what you think. You don't have the backbone to say what you believe. You are not able to stand up for yourself. And that is the message that you're communicating with them. They're communicating to them. You're telling them, hey, I'm not gonna defend Vox. I'm not gonna defend the guy. I'm not gonna defend Donald Trump. I don't agree with everything they say. So just please stop pushing me, and then I'll be okay. Yeah, exactly. Somebody said if you cower on the ground, they're going to kick you on the ground. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So don't give them anything. Don't back up. There's no need. Not only is there no need to do it, but you're not accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish. What are you trying to accomplish when you're saying things like, I don't agree with so-and-so, but you're saying, I don't want you to, please don't criticize me for this. Please don't attack me for this. Does it ever work? Not usually. Not that I've seen very often. So, be bold, but most of all, speak the truth. Yes, there is an issue when you're at work. And you know what how you handle it at work? If work is political, if you're, then you just say, we're at work. Is this an appropriate conversation for work? Is this really something that we should be talking about at work? Let's talk about work. Just here, I gotta nuke this spammer. I honestly don't understand what they think they're trying to accomplish. Anyhow, yeah, there are times and places. Look, I'm not saying that you need to be running around declaring yourself, opening up, your heart about the deepest, darkest secrets you have in your heart. I'm not talking about that. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you're sitting around the dinner table and somebody says something about, isn't that Trump just awful? What do you do? What is your instinctive reaction when somebody says that? Your instinctive reaction is to, try to dissemble and stuff. Don't. That's what they're testing. Remember, they're constantly dipping their toes in the water, constantly trying to see where things stand, because that's what they do. And so, no, obviously, in some workplaces, you do have the freedom to speak your mind. And, if you're anti-fragile, if you can afford to speak your mind, when I was young, I worked for my father's company. I could say whatever I wanted. I could do whatever I wanted, and frankly, I wasn't going to get in trouble for it. But that's an anti-fragile position. Most people are not completely anti-fragile. And so, it behooves you to be aware of the circumstances. When the enemy is behind walls and has archers, maybe you don't go charging in there with your cavalry because you can't climb the wall and they're just going to shoot you with arrows. Okay? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about situations, social situations where the only penalty that you're going to pay is a social cost. And here's the other thing. Make them pay it. Why are you tolerating them? Why do you tolerate this bullshit from people who don't respect you, don't like you, or at least don't respect you and don't like you enough to value your right to have your own opinion? Cut them out. I mean, they fear that. They fear that. They fear that above everything. They fear exclusion. And you can bring people over to the alt-right faster by rejecting them, kicking them out, and making them feel the emotional pain of exclusion than you can by any rational argument. These are not rational people. Okay? How do you... Here's a lesson. Again, this is from chapter 10 in SJW's Always Alive. I don't even know what the chapter's called. It's... I don't know. Anyhow, it's not the appendix. Here we go. How to talk to SJWs. That's what it's called. How to talk to SJWs. And it's all about rhetoric. Yeah, Aristotle, it goes back to Aristotle. He figured this out a long time ago. I'm not making any of this up. You know, one of the most brilliant men in the history of mankind came up with this basic concept. He defined it, and he said, some people cannot learn from information. Some people cannot be convinced by reason. It's just, it can't work that way. They can't work that way. And so what you have to do, they only communicate and change their minds through emotions. And so if you want to change their mind, you have to appeal to their emotions in some way. Well, what emotion do you appeal to convince an SJW? You give him a choice. He has a choice between this pain and that pain. You know, the reason that they are so adamant and the reason they so push so hard to try to convince you is because they're afraid of being excluded. And that's why they often threaten you with exclusion. No, that's the wrong question. Somebody says, how do you do that without being too mean? You want to be mean. You want to cut them off. You threaten them with exclusion, and they will do just about anything to make sure that they're not excluded. Even changing their mind. You know, they think it's changing their mind. But really, that's just ex post facto rationalization. They've already changed their position because their emotions have changed. You know, they want to be with you. They want to continue to be part of the group. And so when you inflict emotional pain upon them, which again, they feel a lot more greatly than you do, then once they feel that pain, then they switch their mind. Suddenly they start to see the benefits of Trump. Suddenly they want to be part of the herd. They will do whatever the herd is. And so what you need to convince them of is that the herd is with the God Emperor. The herd is with the alt-right. If you are not with the alt-right, we are the future, you need to be with us, or you will be left behind, you'll be left out, you'll be miserable, you'll be lonely. And it's amazing how suddenly they start spitting out and repeating the very stuff that they used to say was of the devil 6 months before. They're not rational people. They're not coherent, and they're not consistent. So don't think that consistency, logic, kindness is ever going to make any sort of positive impact on them. It's not. It's not going to affect them. And so, you know, again, if this is new to you, seriously, I mean, you know, I don't mind shilling this book at all because I wrote it because I experienced it. I wrote it because I experienced it, and all of you, sooner or later, are likely to experience it yourself. Save yourself the trouble, recognize what's going on, and then you'll be able to come out of it ahead. You know, it's, and if you're, like I've said before, if you're under an SJW attack already, go to the blog, voxday.blogspot.com, download the free guide. There's a 8-page PDF guide, and it'll tell you exactly how they're going to attack you, and it will give you advice on how you can respond to those attacks. Success is not guaranteed. You know, sometimes once you get targeted and once you get attacked, you're going down. But there's two ways to go down. You can either, go down getting kicked and totally, cowering and unsurprised, or you can go down swinging and taking them, half of them out along with you, But the important thing is understand that even those people who call themselves your friends, who call themselves your coworkers, people that you would like to think that you can get along with, they look at you like a target. They will treat you like a target. Yes, emotional pain is the only way to change their position because they do not think. Information cannot change their opinion. So, anyhow, that's all I've got for tonight. So thanks for coming by. We'll probably pick up the free trade debate in the next day or two. Anyhow, I look forward to seeing you soon, and we will speak to you then. Have a good evening.